Hello, and welcome to the 57th edition of Beer Issues. My name is Matt Bruckert, and today I'm bringing a very special beer for sampling. It's the North Coast Old Rasputin. Now, I'm not going to lie to you, this is not the first time I've had this beer, and I'm definitely sure it's not going to be the last time I've had this beer. Now, this beer, or going to have this beer, I guess I should say, this beer rates 96 out of 100, so this is considered a world-class beer. It's a Russian Imperial Stout by North Coast, which is out of California. So we're going to go ahead, I'm going to open this to give it a second. Now, just so you know, this beer clocks in at about 9% alcohol by volume, which would put it into the average for an Imperial Stout. The beer rates number 31 in the world for this kind of beer, so I'm really excited to have it, even though I've had it before. Now, as with most Russian Imperial Stouts, this beer is going to pour like a black, almost motor oil color with the tannish head that you see, which we got a nice head on there, which is perfect. Now, when you smell this, you're going to get, right off the bat, I get the coffee, chocolate. There's almost, it's definitely malty, but I almost think that there could be like cherries in there. And probably some vanilla. Very good smell. Very exciting. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to take a sip of this beer. We're going to test it out here. Oh yeah. So now if you like a strong coffee flavor in your Imperial Stout, this one's right. I mean, this one's really good because it does have a good coffee. It does have a little bit of chocolate, not quite as much as I've seen in a lot of the Imperial Stouts, but it's a dark chocolate. So it blends well with the coffee. So you're getting that coffee with the dark chocolate, which is making a real nice combination. Oh yeah, that's a good beer. Now, let's talk about the history real quick of Russian stouts and what a Russian stout is. You'd think by the name that it would be a beer from Russia, right? Or originally founded in Russia. No, it's an English beer, actually. Originally brewed back in the 1800s. And it was originally brewed, and it was called a Russian Imperial Stout, is because they made this beer and they exported this beer to Russia for Catherine II of Russia. So Catherine II is the person that they would export this beer to Russia for, but it is made in England, okay? Also, the first company to actually ever export a Russian Imperial over to the U.S. was in the 80s, and that was by Samuel Smith. So a lot of you are probably familiar with Samuel Smith's beers. They make some really delicious English ales and stouts and different things, but they were the first one to actually import a Russian stout into the U.S. Now there's a lot of local breweries, and like this California brewery, they did a really nice job of the Russian Imperial Stout. Now you can also sometimes find this Russian Imperial Stout on nitro. So they sometimes will do it on a nitrogen. And it's extra delicious on nitrogen. If you ever get a chance, you see that at a bar. I think it's even better on the nitrogen, but I like it either way. Both ways, it's a delicious beer. Very tasty, very flavorful, full of flavor. Really good beer. So now you've learned a little bit. A Russian Imperial Stout isn't made in Russia. It was never originally founded in Russia, but made in England, exported to Russia. So if you've enjoyed this and you've learned something about beer, I recommend you try this one if you're a stout fan. If you're not a stout fan or an Imperial Stout fan, probably not up your alley because it's going to have a good, strong coffee flavor to it. And if that's not something that appeals to you, stay away from this one. But if you like a good stout, this is really a highly rated, tasty stout. There's a reason they call it world class, because it really is world class when you're talking about one of the top ones in the entire world. So make sure you tell your friends about Beer Issues. Make sure they subscribe on YouTube, on Facebook, however. But make sure they subscribe so they know about future issues when they come out. And as my wife likes to say, I have beer issues.